Hello there in Focus on Liberia land. How are you all today? Um, we're all coming back from a nice Independence Day celebration, and we thought it wise to evaluate the inaugural, or rather the speech given by the guest speaker for the Independence Day ceremony. It has reached a lot of controversy as the American delegation walked out, and we have people, government officials commenting, newspaper, international organizations commenting, and so we thought let's examine it. Let's take a look at it and see what the issues were and how best we can digest all this thing that happened. With me, joining me today to discuss these matters, I have Mr. Gabriel Carter. Gabriel?
Jimmy, thank you. It's good to be here. I think we've covered this speech probably on several um, you know shows already, but I think there's still confusion about the speech. People taking abstract version of it and running with it instead of looking at the whole speech in its entirety. So hopefully we're able to bring everybody attention to that and talk about the speech in entirety. And I think we have other current issues as well to talk about. So I look forward to having a good discussion. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. I do too. And then, of course, we have the unrepentant sedition, Mr. Jerome Gaiman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eastman, for inviting me. Great day to be a Liberian. We heard the oration of Dr. Nije Pele, and like the American people would say, it was a doozy, a dossier of thoughts.
A doozy,
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully we can dissect and hopefully digest partially or wholly what she said, and I'm here to hopefully look at it holistically.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And of course, we have with us the young, brilliant mind, Dr. Pearson. Welcome.
Thank you, Jimmy. It's a pleasure being on the show tonight. I want to say hi to Gabriel and Jerome. It's a pleasure being on the show tonight. We look forward to discussing this. Most talk about 177th day of our Independence Day celebration oration. It got the whole world talking, and so I guess we cannot just drop it yet, and got to dissect it a little bit and see what is in there. And every nuggets of truth that will count, and see where we go from there. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and so without any further ado, we will jump right in it. Looks like we lost Mr. Pearson for a minute, but I'm sure he will be back. So, Jerome.
Yes.
Our longtime partners. I think, in fact, let's approach it. There's a domestic part of the speech, and there is where she went to the international relations. So let's separate. Let's go to the real controversy. One of the real controversies was the walkout of the American delegation. We do know that the U.S. has been our partner in progress almost over 100 years now. And we tend to look toward the U.S. for guidance, for assistance. We know that they were instrumental in Liberia's survival. There have been criticism that more could be done. But here we see that they actually felt insulted and they walked out. So what's your take on all that, Mr. Gaiman?
Well, I want to look at it from the spectrum, the other end of the spectrum. And right after they walked out, a friend of mine said that was very disrespectful to the Republic of Liberia in front of guests, in front of dignitaries from other countries, and it was savagely done. And my question to that gentleman was, does Liberia deserve respect? And he went very silent. And he said, what do you mean? I said, people respect people who are peers, people who are on the same elevation. How will you want to be respected when the United States were in negotiation when I think uh, we're mobile, when we're discussing the oil blocks, our government was more interested in writing their names and their family names and their children's names in those concessions. In fact, some flipped it after 60, 70 days and made a killing. Do you expect an American person sitting across the table who is negotiating on behalf of her nation and you negotiating on behalf of yourself and your immediate family, do you expect that person to respect you? I also talk about the 66, 68 concession agreement that was written, and the United States, the EU, everybody said 66 of the 68 concession agreement were bogus. Basically, it was anti-Liberia, and few families in Liberia name were written in that contract. Do you expect that person to respect you? You have a constitutional president who says that the Constitution and rule of law is not as important as a gentleman's agreement to bring in 285 major pieces of equipment in the country without due process. Do you expect another nation, a rule of law, to respect you? And I think the orator may comment to that particular effect. Do you expect that the president, someone says, someone gave us 20 police cars. It doesn't matter who gave it to us. We have it and it's good for the country. Do you expect a country that believes in rule of law to respect you? So like we say in short, if you want to be respected, respect is earned. It's not demanded. You can't demand it. If I want Gabriel Carter or Dr. Pearson to respect me, I have to behave in a manner that determines when he sees me that I'm a gentleman of a person deserving of respect. So in that sense, I say these folks look at us and say these guys are not serious. And I think in their response to us is, before you condemn us, look at yourselves. Corruption, we have been talking about it from the beginning of this country, and you can't even address corruption, and then you want us to respect you. So, Mr. Eastman, it's a double-edged sword, but I would like to do the internal evaluation. What have we done to deserve respect?
Okay, I think that is very interesting, Dr. Pearson. You heard what our fellow panelist, Mr. Gaiman, just said. We want respect. And it's interesting that the title of her speech was "Let Dignity Define Us." That was the title of her speech. And it sounded like it had a good theme, but some would say she derailed. What is your opinion about it?
Amara, the senator for Bapulu County, Amara Conan, raised that point when he spoke about that speech. And one of the things he said was that she premised the speech on dignity, but in her approach towards our traditional partner, the United States of America did not show any dignity and did not do them any service. It was a disservice to the partnership to the America, looking at what they've done for us. But I would like to comment on this aspect of how I see this entire thing with the U.S. working out. The United States of America, I think, is the mother of democracy out there when it comes to advocating for the tenets of democracy. And I think one of the fundamental tenets of democracy is freedom of speech. And I was taken aback, to be very frank with you, that the Shadia affair, Rodriguez will walk out from a diplomatic function because she didn't like what she heard. But again, it goes back to say that she represents a sovereign country, and they have the right, like she said in her response, a measured response to the situation to calm the diplomatic pressure. So they do have the right to respond the way they did. But I think I would have expected much more from the United States when it comes to that. And the fact that Liberia holds a strategic relationship with the United States, I think just leaving, walking out of the unprecedentedly, I should say, walking out of that occasion, deflected the entire occasion, whether we like it or not. That's going to be the highlight across the world as compared to anything else that was said in our speech. And I think their way injure us most. It says a lot about diplomacy out there. And I blame it on squarely, and I should say, on the Walker administration for one reason, Jimmy. When you're having a program like this, whatever program you're having, the advisors to the president should know that the program has certain kind of audience, and there are certain protocol that should be aligned with such an audience. And when you are submitting invites out there, imagine the G8 or the G7, whatever the case is, going to have a fundamental conference, an important conference in Warsaw, wherever it might be around the world, and then they invite a Greenpeace activist to come and be the keynote speaker, And what do you expect? They're definitely going to use the platform to denigrate or to condemn the entire civilized governing body because they find them liable for the level of harm we're causing to society and the climate out there. So I think the Walker administration did not do good when it comes to how they plan that program as to who they selected to speak. And I close by saying and our orator said it. She said she was aware that people advised Walker that she is a frisky little girl and she's an activist. But if they chose to have invited her, then which means she was ready for what she had to say. So I don't blame her for saying what she said. That's her capacity as an activist, and she spoke within her capacity.
Interesting. But Gabriel, let me come to you. Mind you, I don't know if people realize that before World War I and World War II, you know who our biggest trading partner was Germany. And we had to close down our businesses with Germany, our biggest trading partner at the time, and side with the U.S. and the Allied forces, and that, of course, threatened our economy to some extent. Mm-hmm. And yet we hear this criticism of our lifelong ally, and we don't hear it was only a criticism only of the U.S. I didn't hear any other country being criticized. So, do you think that what prompted the U.S. To leave?
I don't think that's what prompted them to leave. I think, and here's how I like to look at it. Imagine you and Eastman arguing, and I come in, right? I won't just ridicule you and leave out Eastman. I ridicule both of you. First, get the understanding of the argument. ridicule both of you, right? And then, you know, warn you guys about the reason why whatever you guys did wasn't, you know, you're not supposed to argue, right? And I maybe that's not a good analogy, but the point that I'm trying to make here is that the entirety of the speech, we are taking an abstract piece of it. Yes, the United States was, you know, at one point we were considered a strategic partner when we had the Omega Tower, you know, when the rubber field, the airport were being used as a fueling station, you know, our port, we were strategic during that time. And yes, if you look at the history, right, they have given us so many loans. I think I've talked about this on the previous shows from the 1.7 million up to the 1 point, you know, the 440 million in this, I think in the 70s and 60s, the 3 billion post-war after the Civil War, and I think another 2 billion during the pandemic, I mean the Ebola. And yes, if you look at our history, we have squandered from corruption, we have squandered every bit of those opportunity, right? So yes, you can say, hey, this person has been so great to you, and you have not shown your part of the ticket. But if you look, like the point that you mentioned with Germany, when we had to, you know, get rid of Germany and side with the United States. That wasn't done because, hey, this was something Liberia did out of our own interest. This was strategic, influential. The same thing with the Firestone rubber deal, right? To the point we almost lost our sovereignty. You know, yes, you can say, hey, when they signed it at their own will, but there was major influence. We can go back to Tarbert time when Tarbert decided to shift from the west and look eastward. Even though it was a strategic time at that moment during the Cold War, he ended up it cost him his life, right? You can the length and framework that Dr. Pali was speaking from until those who are criticizing her understand the strategic history of Liberia and how we were so influenced. Yes, you can somebody can tell you sign this paper and you sign it, but you're doing it under duress because you know if you don't do it, there are consequences. I can list all up to every president who was been taken out because they failed to go that route. Right. So you look at that opportunity, you look at those framework as well. I've given you have given us loan, but you also caused so much damage to us. Yes, we've also misused that funds as well. What the doctor did was hold them accountable. But I think before we got on the show, Jerome said it, and that is perfectly his words, right? Which is true. 90% of the speech were on domestic issues, right? What she talked about, hey, I've traveled length and breadth of the 16 counties. And there's one thing that we want to see, including the 15 county, including the 16 county, which is the diaspora, right? There is one thing that should define us: a dignified life. That should be our creed, our prayer. People left all of that out, right? She said dignity should define us. It should be our creed. It should be our prayer. All of those things. Meaning, this is what should unite us. But we left that out and calling out a fact which is true and holding both party accountable. We take one side, oh, because you the people gave you money, you misuse it, so you can't talk about them. Where I'm from, Jimmy, I'm from a small village in Maryland County, Boninkan. You can pass through it before you go to Hopper. Our grandpa always tell you tell people the truth. You tell them the fact. What they want to do with that. In Liberia, in Africa, we do the same. We will look at you if you're fat, we'll tell you, my man, you're fat. If we're not going to tell you, hey, you're overweight, you're this and that. If you're feces, we'll tell you you're feces. What she was doing is holding everybody accountable without being, you know, bringing any type of nuance to that, right? And the fact that we took that little abstract of a speech and ran with it and left out everything, the fact that she wanted unity to dignity to define us, that it should be our creed, it should be our prayer, right? And she said that until Liberians can have dignity in life, we are not going anywhere, right? It's all of those things are right in that speech, but we left all of that. So to answer your question before I land, No, I don't think that's what the walkout, right? I don't think that's what the I think the United States is just being like, this is a psychological strategy that they're playing on us, right? Like you said it, freedom of speech. I'm allowed to say anything I want, right? To a limit. She didn't disrespect them. She called them out. Yeah, you've taken more from us. If you in a diplomatic channel, you can sit through that and respond after the speech. But to get out and leave in the middle of a speech for a sovereign nation, and those, I will say this quickly and I'll end. For those who are condoning this kind of behavior, this is the reason why people will continue to disrespect us as a country. Because if you don't show any patriotism towards your country, there is no other stranger that will come out and show you patriotism, to fight for you. You have to show a level of patriotism for your country. I don't care if somebody is giving homeless person in the street food. That doesn't give you the right to go disrespect the person. You give somebody in the street penny and they take that penny to go buy drugs with it instead of buying food. You stop giving them the money. You don't go there and go disrespect them or go spit on them like, hey, I gave you money yesterday. You didn't buy food with it. You bought drugs with it. It gives you no right to disrespect the person. So that's the length in which I'm looking at it. And there's a lot of historical context from which the doctor was looking at it. Thank you.
Excellent. I say welcome, Anthony Gay. Welcome to the platform. We're talking about the speech given by the guest speaker, Pele. Let dignity define us. And you can hear from what Mr. Carter was saying that, okay, you've been helping somebody, but I want to ask you a question. Let me change the scenario. Let's say this person is always begging somebody. Your hand is always out. Your hand always out. You're begging somebody. And then you get up, your sister or your brother get up and say, oh, why we need dignity? Why would we just be begging? We need to have dignity. But the person who you're begging, they have been taking advantage of yourself. They've been getting more than what you get from them. Now, what do you think? You think that is a strategic move? We're talking about strategy. You think that, how strategic was that? What's your opinion?
Talking to me, Mr. Eastman?
Yes. Do you hear anything I said?
Oh yeah, I heard everything. So
Okay.
first of all, I want to commend Mr. Carter for his point he made. Is spot on. Yeah. So again, the other day I mentioned that we need to speak more about patriotism instead of just talking politics. People need to understand what patriotism is, what it means. If you travel outside Liberia and visit any of our foreign missions, you will realize how bad our foreign missions is outside Liberia. Even the embassy in Washington, D.C. And that happens only because most Liberians, I would say, do not respect their fellow citizen. They don't take you serious. They don't think you are important. They don't think that you deserve to be treated with respect. All of those things. So these things have been playing on. So yeah, Dr. Pele was very right. I think the speech was very well written and presented very well. I was upset when I saw the ambassador walking away because that was very disrespectful to our nation. Regardless who you are, you were invited to an event. The president invited you. With all due respect, why would you walk out of a gathering of that, statue, and then go and put out a statement talking about, oh, it's supposed to be a unity and whatnot? You just disrespected a whole sovereign nation. But then, in the same token, you want to offer, advice or solution or way forward. You cannot have it both ways. Imagine a person have done so from the White House. How would that look like? And so, Mr. Eastman, it's about time we Liberians, value our own citizen first. Foreigners, have more respect in our country. When you arrive to Rao International Airport with a foreigner, the people at the airport, they will cater to the foreigner first before you. I don't know what they do, but it shows that they don't even understand what being a citizen is. And so if you don't understand what patriotism is, then you treat your fellow citizen that way. Every Liberian deserves better. Every Liberian has to be treated with respect. You go to Abidjan, the Liberian embassy, forget it. They treat you like something else. You go to DC, the same thing. In Europe, in Brussels, same thing. I mean, everywhere our foreign mission is just a mess. And so this is a systemic issue, an issue well rooted in our nation that have been neglected for a very long time. So this administration, they're just using the US part of it, that is just 5% of the speech. Like Mr. Carter said, 90% of the speech talked about domestic issues. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want the people to know about what is being said. They don't even want to give it credence because it's not in their best interest. I'm glad she said what she said, because some of those things we have said it on this particular platform and other platform that I go on, that this administration way of proceeding with respect with the yellow machine and other, government procurement is completely outside the spectrum of PPCC regulations. There's a reason why these things are put into place for people to follow these processes. But again, it would take ourselves, Liberian, to value ourselves, value our nation, treat each other with respect, give each other the dignity that we all deserve before anybody take us serious. If somebody comes to your house and they see the decoration on the wall and try to rearrange your own decoration that you have in your house, and you don't put stop to it, the next thing, they'll go to your bedroom and try to rearrange your bed. You put stop to where they come into the house in the living room. Back then when there was house phone, when we all used to have house phone in this country, people will come to your house. By the time your house phone start ringing, they'll go and answer the phone. Some of them will come, you watching something on the TV, they will just grab the remote and change the channel. These basic, house manner. You don't do those things. You don't answer somebody's house phone. You don't change the channel that they're watching when you get there. If nobody watching the TV and you say, oh, can I change the channel? Can I put something on? That's how you do it. You have a laptop. Somebody will come there, oh, let me check my email. No, that's rude. It's called a laptop for a reason. It's the desktop there, and you want to use it, you ask for permission. But I see many of us, we do that. We go in people's home, we take the remote, we change the channel. We answer the house phone. Because you were never taught this basic house manual, right? You never taught these things. You're never brought up that way. You will find many people doing that. So civilization, patriotism, these things, they are conversation we must have. Because we cannot assume that everyone is civilized. And that is a misconception. Because what you don't know, we have that saying in Liberia, is bigger than you. And I want to end with this part. What you don't know is bigger than you. In fact, ignorance is one of the things that taking our nation to what it is. Look at our lawmakers. Many of whom today, over 50% of them, don't even know what they are in the legislature to begin with. They don't know. They don't understand their job function. They don't understand the duty of their functions. They just do what they do. And today, this administration signed into law 100,000 for each representative and 150,000 each for each senator, quote unquote, legislative engagement. Where does it ever happen where a lawmaker will carry on projects? Are there projects? Did we elect, humanitarians, or we elected lawmakers? These same folks went to work and passed a law called a tail lane in Liberia. Do we have a tail lane that they drive on the opposite side of the road and they say it's a tail lane? If you have a nation like that where the first branch of government do things as backwards as they are, then something wrong with that picture. So I want to give back my time.
Jimmy, can I get five seconds?
Okay, I'll go ahead. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So let us admit that we expected more from the U.S. Chargé affair, but at the same time, we should consider that there is something called diplomacy. Diplomacy, and in diplomacy, you have to watch how you say what you say. So the forum did not call for the approach that our orator took on the podium. And don't get me wrong, I said earlier that we don't blame her for what she did, because that's who she is. The onus was on the Liberian government to have a best pick for the best occasion. Now, she may be qualified, she may have articulated the issues well, but was that the right platform? That's a no. That's a no. But the message is good. Talking to power or speaking to power is a good thing. If that message had been delivered, maybe on the launch of Liberia's strategy for a strategy for inclusive development, at the launch of it, as a senior guest speaker for that occasion, that would be splendid. Meaning, you go into another agenda for developmental projects. Again, don't go rely on partners that will not be there for you. Nobody step to own up to your responsibilities and live up to it. But no, we have foreign guests, and then you cannot call your foreign guests to you, your visitors. Then you embarrass them in the process. I think that's where the American ambassador came from, and we should accept that we made a mistake as a government in that direction. The speech was okay, but the platform in the forum was not the place for that utterance. That's what I wanted to say.
So
Can I disagree with Dr. Pierce real quick, Mr. Eastman?
Go ahead.
I was going to do the same, but
Yes.
go ahead.
I remember when Vanny Sherman served as campaign manager for Ellen. When during that election time, they packed. And the pact was that everybody that came as an alliance, you would be accorded certain slot. And they all went for it. After the election, Ellen decided to be her own woman. So at some point, 26th celebration, Vanny Sherman was selected to be the orator. Ellen Johnson and her clique, being suave as they are, they asked Vanny Sherman to send a speech in advance. So he did. He sent in the speech, the editor and everything, and they said, okay, they give it to him. When he put his speech in his portfolio, when he went on the podium, at the back of his portfolio was the real speech he wanted to give, and the speech that was edited, he put that in the bottom and spoke truth to power. And Ellen was embarrassed. She sat there, but she had to go through it. This is the flip side of censorship. If you want someone to speak, and you want them to speak as anybody would, you got nothing to fear. Why censor? Why ask? And let me read this real quick. Something that the American people told us, and this was during our 200th anniversary, the bicentennial, when Dina Banks represented the White House, and she came to Liberia. She said the U.S. message was, U.S. urges self-reliance at Liberia's bicentennial. And it said, as Liberia celebrates 200 years of existence as a nation state, after it was established by free slaves from the United States of America, U.S. head of delegation to Liberia bicentennial Dana Ben has said, it is time for Liberia to stop depending on the U.S. and the rest of the international community to solve its problem. Only you, Liberians, should solve your own problem. This is the message from the White House at our bicentennial. So what I'm telling you here is these people are tired with this diplomacy and everything else that we do. Let me give you another caveat. When I was growing up in Bassa, we discovered that the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Richard A. Henrys, was the lawyer for Firestone and Lamco against the people he represented in the House. And do you want the Americans or the international people to respect us for doing business like this? And the lady said the same thing. Joseph Walker, you need to self-correct. We are a nation of rule of law. Do you want to be remembered? What is your legacy? Do you want to be remembered as a president that broke the law? You need to reverse the yellow machine. She also said, the debacle with the sanction, I mean, not the sanction, how they call it,
The tenure.
the tenure positions. These are people that were legally hired. And the constitutional supreme ruler of our country, the Supreme Court, rule, and you disabuse yourself of the constitutional jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, and you went and did otherwise. There's a whole lot. And she said, you knowingly appointed shady character, basically crooks. And he said, you know who they are. This is a woman who spoke truth to power. Like Mr. Carter was saying, we are only looking, the administration and its surrogates are amplifying the United States piece of it, so we cannot talk about the ills of our society.
Exactly.
Mr. Eastman, when you go into our chat room, the On Point, you will go there and pull up a comment that was made by Sylvester Moses, our former NSA director, and what he, as a supporter of Joseph Boykai, from the very beginning to now, to say this is dangerous. We are inept. And as I can see it, they will run Joseph Boykai out of office. He said it. I posted it. This is a man who is an expert in national security and a supporter of Joseph Boykai. He said there cannot be a conspiracy that 3 major events happen in 6 months. The president debacle at the inauguration, the military, they had an Armed Forces Day debacle, and then the Independence Day debacle. These are 3 major events that happen on his watch in 6 months. This is dangerous, he said. I yield.
Let me, Jimmy, if it's okay, let me just make a
Go ahead.
quick point. Let's 30 minutes or less. And I think this is something that I think I said earlier, right? And this is for those who are saying that the speech is supposed to be about unity. It's supposed to be about, celebrating, Liberia and Liberian. And I think she did all of that. I think, again, when people are saying things, some people tend to not read and they just go with what everybody else is saying, that herd mentality where you just jump on what everybody else is saying instead of going to the source, right? Let me read a simple piece of her speech here. She said, dignity must define us. This should be our creed, our vision, our mission, our roadmap, our North Star, our prayer, our central unifying core and ideal as a people. Dignity must define us, right? Again, I'll read that. This should be our creed, our mission, our vision, our roadmap, our North Star as a people, right? Ideal as a people, dignity must define us. That is, if you can think about a unifying paragraph within itself as a country of what Liberia ought to be, right? As a people, what she wants us to aspire to as a people, dignity, right? And she said that in addition to saying, I've traveled all the 15 counties, the 16th being the diaspora, meaning there's 15 in Liberia, and she considered the 16 county as a diaspora. And she said, every Liberian wants to be dignified, to live a dignified life. Further down that speech, right? She said, how do we enable all Liberians to realize their fullest potential? all of this, you left all of that in that speech. This is just a fraction of it. There's a lot more. But you decide to focus on someone's calling the historical past of a country and those who have done a lot of atrocity to us and holding their feet to the fire, in addition to holding the government official who are empowered feet to the fire. But you left the official who feet were held to the fire. But why should she talk about the Americans? They're not of this. She didn't say anything bad about them. If you read your history, you will know.
No, right. But wait, man, wait now, Mr. Carter. Let's. You said she didn't say, but let's examine what walking out intends. Okay, then I'll get back to you. It's a protest or disagreement. One of the signs. The most common reason for walking out is to show strong disapproval of a disagreement with a speaker's views, policies, and statements.
Right.
It's also a condemnation.
Thank you.
A condemnation.
It's a condemnation. That's how I see it.
Can be a form of condemning the actions and behavior of the speaker,
right,
or their government, signaling that the delegation does not wish to engage or be associated with them. It can also mean solidarity with another group. Okay. It also publicity. A walkout can draw attention to a particular issue or stance, amplifying the delegation message and making it clear to a wider audience. And I'm sure the State Department got word of this thing. Right. And also diplomatic pressure. It can be used as a tactic to apply diplomatic pressure, indicating that the relationship between the delegations is strained and is signaling potential consequences of certain actions or policies that are not changed.
Thank you. In that very breath, right? In that very breath.
Well, let Gabriel finish, then we'll come to you.
Let me finish. I will pass it over to you, Mr. Pearson, Dr. Pearson. In that very breath, everything that you just mentioned, they doubled down on it. And what she said was, and I think this is what everybody ran with, America has taken more from Liberia than Liberia has gotten from the USA.
Yeah.
Right? And they went and doubled down and said we walked out because there's supposed to be a speech of unity, but this is not, is somebody accusing you and you don't, let me say this quickly. All of us, I go to church, right? Would you want the pastor preaching to you prosperity messages, gospel every time you go to church, or do you want them to speak the truth to you that will make you have a moral and lead a moral life? Or would you want to go to a church where they say, hey, Jimmy, you're going to be rich. Say hallelujah, do such and such and such, you're going to be rich. The future is bright for you. Or would you want to see a pastor who's seeing the kind of lifestyle you're living and calling you out on it? Say, Jimmy, the kind of character you're living, I don't think those are the character of a man. Would you walk out if they start preaching a message like that, or would you want to stay because they're preaching prosperity message? You're supposed to listen whether the message is good or bad. It is not meant to ridicule you, but it's meant to make you examine your own relationship. That message was meant to make America go back and examine her relationship. Hey, let's look over the kind of relationship we have with this country. Has it been good? Right? In addition to that, the government officials are supposed to go back to the table and say, hey, let's look at how we've dealt with this country from a strategic standpoint. Has that relationship been good? But you don't walk out just because the president is not preaching, rubbing your back and rubbing your feet and telling you, the future is going bright for you. You're the North Star. No, you listen to whether is good or bad, and you go and do self-reflection. This is the truth that Liberian people hate. They love to be pacified, and that message was not pacifying. It was brutal. It was honest, and people don't like reality. That's what it was.
But they were American people now that walk on that Liberian people.
Yeah, exactly.
You see, Mr. Eastman, this is where I want to come again to repeat myself when I said earlier that there's nothing wrong with the speech. What is wrong is the platform and the occasion at which the speech was given. When you listen to what Mr. Eastman read, it tells you that the United States of America felt there was a strong diplomatic breach within the occasion. They felt there was a strong diplomatic breach within the occasion. Now, who hinders the Independence Day of Liberia? Who hinders the planning? It is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is our higher diplomatic institution in the country. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs should know and understand what is the occasion, who will be the audience, what are the protocols for such an occasion. And when they are inviting anyone to come and speak, or when they are advising the president to invite anyone to come and to speak, they should make sure that they set the bar for the diplomacy to be very high, so that the expectation of the diplomatic content of the speech is met. So nobody, no, I know Mr. Eastman, we're going to go into the detail of the Liberian component of the speech. Nobody critiquing the component of the speech, but I think it was Charles Taylor or it was Steve Marks Jalatere that said this sometime, I think 1995 or 1998, 97, 98. One of them, I'm not sure which, but they said this. They said, when a man bites a dog, when a dog bites a man, it is not news. But when someone passes and says, oh, the man bite the dog, it becomes a news. Meaning, there are certain things that you say or do out of other things that you say or do will not be a major issue for the press to pick up, but other things you do automatically becomes news. And that goes for the symbol. It was a high diplomatic function that did not call for combative rhetoric. What it calls for was for a moment of understanding, like she said, unity, consolation, hope, vision for the future. Now, I'm not saying you can call out your current government. She can call out her government as much as you want to call them out. She could have called all the Liberians that she wanted to call us out as well. But you don't go attacking your foreign partners because they came to identify with you on your national day. And Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you knew that they have certain responsibility diplomatically. That's what we're saying. That's what we're saying.
That relationship, as you said, has been only in our imagination, and that's the part that you guys left out as well. There hasn't been. It's been only in our imagination. We were only strategic at one point.
That's an argument for another.
We were strategic when we had the Omega Tower. We were strategic when the airport was being used as a fuel station. Right now, they don't even say we're strategic anymore. They say it's a unique. That's a euphemism. It's a unique. It's not. You didn't see the word strategic. It's unique. That's a euphemism. I yield back.
It is unique. But before we go to I will let Mr. Jerome chime in before we go to the domestic part of that speech, the speech where she advised how we should carry ourselves with dignity. Jerome.
Yes. Again, I want to say I'd like to give examples. When I was in graduate school, Professor Michael Dukakis, in one of our political social psychology classes, he says, when you come to Washington, when you get on Capitol Hill, no one should tell you what that place is. You will be convinced that it is a place of power. From the size of the door to the size and the steepness of the stairs, to the rotunda, to the architecture, to the monuments, it tells you that when you get there, there's no question. You know who is in charge. You are in America and you are in the home of a superpower. So the respect is already there. You got no choice but to walk in and admire where you're going and behave accordingly. When I was in Liberia in March, some delegation from the embassy was walking with me. We were going to Gurley Street. And like I said, we were jumping over the open sewage. We jump over, sewage all over the place. We're going to an African store. They wanted to buy some African shirt. And we are going to all of these places. And then I think one of them put their hands in their pocketbook and took out a mask and wore it. And we were going. embarrassed as I was, do you think these people that live next door in that compound that looks like the US and a few inches from the embassy down that place, few steps, you want these people to elevate you with respect when you have a budget of $800 million and you take 95% of the budget for yourselves? You are making more money than the people you bag in the United States, the Senate that gave you. You make more money than they do. There is no money for sewage, running water, electricity, the city, our children, education. Yet and still, you are walking around with something called arrest on there. You're supposed to address all of these things. But then in your budget, your talk and your campaign does not match your appropriation. Do you want someone to respect people who talk like that? So here we are. Joseph Walker is sitting there, and your child, whole future we are discussing, is telling you that, Mr. Walker, you are not doing me any great favors. You are damaging the future of us and our children. You are not doing this right. And then she went back to our history. She said we need to reimagine who we are as a people, as a nation. And the United States retort was, look at your healthcare system. When George Weah were here, we told you guys, you were stealing the drug that we send. You were stealing everything that come here. You would take the drug from the hospital and take it to your own private hospital. You would take you would be a doctor at JFK and open a drugstore downstairs, and you refer a dying patient to your own clinic to buy the drug that was stolen from the United States and our partners. And you want me to respect you. So what I'm saying here, respect is earned until we start doing right by our people. When Obama was traveling Africa, everybody thought he was going to make a stop in Liberia. When he was interviewed in Ghana, he said, we do not go to a country where the leaders came 20% off the top. Who was he talking to? Definitely Liberia, one of those countries where when money comes to us, 20% is skimmed off the top before it gets to the people. So who wants to deal with people like us? So you can blame this woman all you want. If we don't have that internal discussion to redefine who we are and what is it we want to do, Liberia will forever be a country of fiefdom, where everybody build a nice houses, 10 walls, 10 feet high wall with barbed wire. Nobody can see the home, the beautiful home you have. That's the Liberia will be bequeathed. And this lady spoke perfectly to that. And we have to do some inward evaluation, Mr. Eastman.
Yes, to reimagine ourselves. But here's another criticism of this lady and her speech. She got on the plane after a couple of days and went back to England where she resides. Now, you telling a people, an impoverished people, to have dignity, to have pride. But can you explain to a hungry person what pride will do for them? Do you think when you talk to a person who doesn't know how to how they will feed their family tomorrow, or somebody who's obsessed with cutting the deal so that they can get money because that is the way of life that they've been taught, can you talk to them about dignity and they understand where you're coming from? Especially when you're very transient, you will be leaving the next day. What do you have to say about that, Mr. Carter?
Listen, I think. Sorry, what was? Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Oh, I'll come back to you, Mr. Pearson.
Look, Good point you raised there, Mr. Eastman. You see, I admire all of the emphasis that Mr. Gaiman have made so far on the domestic front of that speech. But like you read the acts, she gave a beautiful speech. She traveled. I don't blame her. Liberia lacks opportunity. All right, and if you're a serious person and you really want to make a major improvement in your life, you have to go out of that country to make the advancement you want to make in your life. It left for you to go back there as many times as you want to go back and meet with families and friends and to do business if you want to do there. But I mean, the opportunities are few, and majority of the opportunities we have, opportunities rather, are within government. But going to dignity, I think this is one of the things that we cannot say that it's a from the bottom up kind of approach. It has to be from the top down approach, because dignity begins with the man's self-worth. Dignity begins with the man's self-worth. If you improve the livelihood of the Liberian people, so that they are no longer only having their hands stretched out to beg before they can have a single meal per day, or having to send their kids in the street to sell cold water or plastic bag, or send a little small market before they can eat late in the evening. I was one of those. I've been through that situation myself. There's no dignity in that. And at the end of the day, you will subject yourself to anything just to get that daily bread. Now, the responsibility lies with our political leaders, those who are up there. And she made it very clear. She spoke directly to President Boyka, and she held him liable as the leader of the times to ensure that the structural changes and the political changes that are necessary will begin with him. And she condemned all of his missteps that we all have been calling out there on many nights. Other people come here and try to question us and say we be anti-government. But she repeated almost everything we've said on this platform. That was not right. I don't want to go and repeat it that Gaiman have already done that. But what I'm saying here is that, but do I trust that change can come, Mr. Eastman? I doubt it. Because a lot of the time, these speeches that are given at the Independence Day are ceremonial. They are just symbolic. And then people make these elaborate speeches on Independence Day. We saw that with Lehman Boy with the imposition, other position and opposition, other things, call for unity. Everybody went back and did their own thing. People went to lobby for sanction against their own Liberians. Some people want to lobby against their own country to be sanctioned so businesses can come to Liberia. And we're also, and then at the same time, opposition was saying there are few private companies in the country, so all the burden is on government, the country poor. But yet instead we keep outside, we lobby against the country so that businesses cannot go there, new concessions cannot be signed. And every concession that was attempted to be signed was vehemently condemned without any recommendation to improve on it. Let me tell you what I mean, Mr. Eastman. If I'm an opposition and there's a concession being discussed to come and invest in Liberia, Igbo Mat or Eton, whatever the case is, and I feel that there are lapses in the concession, will I not go for the concession hearing at the legislature and provide corrections for that improvement in the document, and see that document go through for the benefit of the Liberian people? But we castigate everything. We condemn it because that's politics for Liberia. Coming back to this young lady, will President Boyka recall Mr. Massaquet, Consular Massaquet from that TRC executive committee? No. Will President Boyka withhold those yellow machines that are being procured without any proper legal process and any proper procedural process when it comes to our procurement laws? Will he record that deal? No. Somebody been taking money for those deals. Will President Boyka go now and prosecute Grace Bay for the money that was taken from NASCAR, from people pension money that he shouldn't have taken because he was not even in power at the time? No, he will not do that. Will he prosecute his own nephew, Jacob Akori, at Noka for almost $700,000 that went in limbo? No, he will not do that. Will he prosecute the inaugural funds that was squandered? No, he will not do that. Will he prosecute the current issue going on now in Central Bank, where they said the Central Bank was trying to bail out other banks dubiously at the detriment of Liberia's reserve? Will he do that? No, he will not do that. So what are we talking? It's just another speech, and going back, and until we can improve the lives of our people, dignity is not in sight.
Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Yeah.
the theme of dignity. Did you think that that speech was impactful, that it might have moved the needle, or that it gave Liberian people from all walks of life something else to think about? Or will it just be a nice thing to hear and we forget it tomorrow?
See, Jimmy, and everybody else that's watching, I have this theory about Liberians, and I have so many evidence to back it up. And that theory is that we are a passive group of people, meaning that we're not bold. We are not bold at all. And the reason why I always say that is because of, if you look at other countries around us, you see citizens can protest, something can happen. What happened in Kenya? They didn't like it. They protest until something happened. Have you ever seen that in Liberia? You know what a passive person can do? They can hold stuff in and it bubbles up to the top and they explode. That's what we've always done as a nation. That's what leads to war, right? So every time we see a bold person speaking, it becomes uncomfortable for us because we're not bold like that. So this is why people are kind of taken aback to what the doctor said, right? She was bold. She was articulate. She held nothing back. And this is why most Liberians see it as being combative. This is what we're supposed to be as a nation. What she did was awaken a people. What she did was like a, awaken a passive group of people who are so passive aggressive that every time they become by the time your own anger comes out, it just explodes and we goes into another war, right? That's my theory. So the speech that she gave, that's the reason why people are holding back. Here's something else she said in the speech, which I don't think, if people are just saying that the speech was, you know, another glorious speech that people are just going to listen to, they're not going to, like I mean, Mr. Gamer said it perfectly. 90% of these things she talked about, people just gloss over it. She talks about the minimum wage bill from 143. She wanted to go back to 250, right? She
Yeah,
talked about the
yeah.
reform. She talks about the reform of NASCORP. She said that whole system, the social security system, needs to be reformed, right? And she also stated, for those of you who just say, oh, she just gave the speech, hop on a plane, and went away. She said, a nations that underpay its citizens cannot go anywhere. All of that is in the speech. So I don't want to say too much on it because I think we've dealt too much on the speech. I urge people again to stop taking abstract version of the speech and go into that speech and read it. There's so much this lady talked about in terms of reform, and I think people just tend to discredit her work. She's not just an activist; she's a political economist. So if you read through that speech, you will see most of the economic issues she touched on, right? So I say all of this to say that we are very passive as a people, and that passiveness gets intimidated whenever a bold person comes out and speak their mind because we're uncomfortable with it. We're not used to being bold ourselves. So when bold person comes out and speaks their mind, we get intimidated. And that's that intimidation we see. Hey, you can't do that. You can't go offend the master. You can't say that about a master. You're supposed to
Hmm.
come here and just paint a glorious picture of what Liberia ought to be and aspire to, and paint this whole kumbaya message. Everybody get up, we clap, and go home. But you forget the reality that is facing you. You forget your demons that were overlords over you since your inceptions, but you don't want to face them. And you say, "Oh, just look at the other person that's abusing us in the house. That's the only person. What about the guy that's coming in your house and throwing dirty water in your house? Are you just gonna sit there and not call him out just because you're supposed to be at a place and it's supposed to be glorious?" This level of passiveness, and this is you see this in the men. The women are kind of more bold than the men. I mean, the women are bolder than the men. You see this level of passiveness in us, and this is why when we hold these things in, we hold this in, we don't talk. It bubbles up. It goes on to become another crisis. We need to be bold. We need to be intentional about what we want, regardless of who's in front of us, we need to state what we want and declare that we are a sovereign nation. I don't care if the hands of God is putting money in your hand and you handing it down to us. I don't care. We need to be articulate and be bold about our issues, and that's exactly what she did.
I think I agree with Mr. Carter and Jerome, but here is what Professor Mulba said. He said what she claimed she made, she did not back it up with data. One, and as Dr. Pearson alluded to, there's a way you can approach things in a diplomatic way. He said, we, instead of saying U.S. aid got more for us than what we got for them, we could have said that there is a more enhanced way that the U.S. can improve our relationship. For instance, the Firestone deal, instead of having it done this way, it would have been better, or instead of having this percentage go back to the U.S., it would have been better for reinvesting in the economy to produce this. In other words, back it up with data. Also provide that escape route for shame's sake, so that you can you show that you want to improve relationship and not criticize. What do you think, Mr. Jerome?
Yeah, but Mr. Eastman, let me remind you quick of what she said in her speech. She said, let me re-echo from what previous people have said over the years. Mr. Carter, she said, I'm just the recent messenger. Other orators have been saying this. They have written about it for centuries. I just want to re-echo, reawaken what they have said. We've been, I want to give proper credit to Albert Einstein. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expect different results. Mr. Comey used that without giving proper credit to Einstein, but that's what it is. People, in fact, somebody from the Unity Party wanted to denigrate her speech and said, you are a similar yoke of our poor and Chipotle. I mean, they just went down the road and said that these people are known to be, they were radicals. They were people who brought this country to their knees. We should have just been stuck in our lane. Basically, that's what they are saying. But when the United States go to these other countries, United States behaves according to their rules and laws and get them respected. I'll give you an example. It was last year when the Vice President Kamala Harris went to Ghana. She was speaking to Congress, and she pledged $100 million, and it was prefaced by equal rights. And she said equal rights implies gender equity and same-sex marriage and all of that. And one of the men from the parliament got up and said, with all due respect, this is antithetical to our tradition, our way of life. We love America, we love you, but this part of your agenda, we do not like, we will not support, we don't want it, and you can take back your $100 million. We don't want it. And other people echo that. Did the United States delegation walk out and say they have been disrespectful? No, because these people were direct, they were honest, they have dealt with the United States as equals. They don't believe that you own us, we don't own you. When you come here, this is our law, this is our traditions. Our decisions are made based on our principles. So we cannot compromise those principles. You didn't see the American delegation walk out of there because we have mutual respect. And what did they do to us in Liberia? We are not their peers. They don't respect us because we have never demanded respect. When the congressman in Ghana spoke, he said, our law, our tradition, our people. When Liberians go negotiate contract, they negotiate for themselves and their friends and their immediate family. They don't go negotiate for the country, for the folks. So you sell this whole Wologisi thing for a few yellow machine, of course we'll take it. But don't come back to us later on and say the deal was not fair. No, this is the hand you dealt your folks. So you see, we have to look at this and say, we have to be honest. The euphemism, I know Dr. Pearson, he's a diplomat, and they want to talk diplomacy and all of that, but a country that had a 80% illiteracy rate, people say, oh, Mr. Gaiman, that's not true. Liberia is for 60% literate, this and that. And then you look at how a college graduate can barely write a full sentence. Everybody has a diploma hanging. Forget about the Arthur Graham School of Law. Now everybody is a lawyer in Liberia, and they can barely write a sentence. And I will tell you this, a lady that spoke at one of the centers in New York when I was there, she said she was given, I think, what, $20-25 million to go to Liberia and reshuffle the judicial system. And her first stop was public defenders. She said, and the thing was, she came from Florida State University School of Law. She wanted to bring in the first 100 law school graduates. And she gave an essay for them to write 500-word brief. She said it was so embarrassing. She said, how do we tell Madam Salif and her government in 2012 that the flagship university law students could not write a 500-word essay without editing, much less a brief? So now you wonder, finally, why in the Ellen government they try what? All the report, all the cases, the government lost every case that it took to the courts. Why? The prosecutors that represented the government, these people could not write their way out of garbage bag to persecute and convict somebody beyond all reasonable doubt. So everybody was going free. And what did Ellen say? Ellen said, I will take the second option, which is they will be found guilty in the court of public opinion, let it hang over their head. When Edwin Snow was indicted for stealing $6 million, they had returned checks, they got transferred, they got everything on him. The Supreme Court said he was not guilty for lack of insufficient evidence. What more do you need? You got return checks, you got bank statement, you got transfer, you got wire transfer, everything on this guy, and you say you lack evidence? So if you have a judicial system that is that rotten, how do you run a nation?
Okay, let me let Mr. Pearson be the last to comment on the Mr. Pearson. She said dignity. Is she talking about competence or dignity? What do we lack? Dignity or competence?
I told someone something. But before I go there, Mr. Gaiman.
Yes.
When Alexander Cummings, when Mr. Cummings introduced that expression, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, he did reference Albert Einstein.
Okay, thank you. And
another thing I want to bring to your attention also, when Kamala went to the Ghanaian Parliament, that's a whole different forum compared to our Independence Day celebration in terms of the audience, which is very important. The audience is very important. So let me come. Look, listen, Mr. Eastman. I said to someone one time, I said, when you can be the poorest person in Liberia, when you leave from Liberia and get on the plane, the day you enter the United States of America, your life changes immediately. Your life changed just by stepping down the plane. Everything about you changed just by stepping off the plane, because of the standard of living and the viability of life here in the United States of America and in any other developed country for that matter. When you step off that plane, you're not going to ride old car no more. You are not going to eat bony, dry bony in red or red no more.
Keke, all the
You are not
things.
going to ride keke or pimping. You know, it's not gonna. You are not going to sleep in zinc shack or mud house or mud floor. You are not going to cook on 3 racks with firewood under it. Everything about you change not because you change, but because the environment itself is developed. The system, the rules, the laws are upheld. So to answer your question, Mr. Eastman, our leaders, like our sister said, needs to reimagine Liberia. They seem Liberia that they all leave from to go to Liberia. President Baka run to Ghana. How many times now for medical attention? Every time he sneak out of Liberia, he go to Ghana for medical attention. If he can make that facility, he runs to the Ghana. The equivalent, if he can make JFK the equivalent of that facility, he runs to the Ghana. That dignity of medical service will be achieved on the spot. Just by walking to JFK, you get that dignity of healthcare service. The colleges, the university will run to into LSE, run here to the United States to get educated, run to England, to London, to India, other places to get educated. If we can upgrade University of Liberia, AMU, UMU to the same standard by providing the requisite equipment, the requisite tool, and that we need an educational facility, laboratories. If we can upgrade that system. And let me say this, it's not difficult, Mr. Eastman. The money those guys use to hold retreat for the Senate, to hold retreat for the representative, the money those guys use to hold retreat for the executive, if you put that money together, it can transform the learning environment of University of Liberia instantly. With a modern library, a modern classroom setting, with projectors to put on the wall. All of us who got churches in Liberia and in America, we all got projecting sermon on the wall. LU don't even have one projector to project any sound educational materials on the wall. Where are we? So I'm saying, Mr. Eastman, we need to reimagine what we want Liberia to look like. We need to overhaul the entire system of Liberia and make it a first generation system, a first generation country, a country that everybody will be proud of. When Liberia transform from that top, everyone else's life will be transformed on the bottom.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Soon you get down from the plane, your whole life is transformed. You have not changed, but the environment alone has transformed you. If we want to transform Liberia, we have to start transforming the environment in which they find themselves. I strongly believe in that. Something else happened. Well, let's go to another topic now. Today, the former security advisor to President George Weah, Jefferson Kama, he was sent to jail by the Monrovia City Court on charges of economic sabotage, and other officials also, such as the former finance minister Samuel Twe, the former Solicitor General of Liberia, Councillor Nyinanti Tuan, former FIU, now the FIA controller Moses P. Cooper, and former Director General of the Financial Intelligence Agency and fraud, what's his name, Stanley Ford. They were all issued a writ of arrest to face charges of economic sabotage, theft, and illegal disbursement. Mr. Carter, what say you about these charges?
I have a story. I'll share a little story and I'll say exactly what I want to say. So, and the story is pretty much that regardless of what the charges are, it's not about what you know, it's about what you can prove in a court of law. Now, I think the president is doing the right thing by going after, people he suspect, were economically sabotaging the state's progress. And I think that is the right thing to do. But the story that I wanted to share, and it'll maybe clarify exactly the point that I just made. In grad school, I had an economic class called Global Economic Environment. We were doing a case on economics, whether trade was what Africa needed for it to succeed. Now, on my team, there was myself, three other Japanese kids. We had all the information we need. We had AFTA, which is the Free Africa Free Trade Agreement. We had all the data to support it. On the other team was a Nigerian girl named Rose with three other people. We had all the evidence. We had everything we need. But after that debate, we lost. And you know why? Even though we had all the evidence in our hand to support our argument, we did not persuade the audience enough in terms of how we deliver the information we had to convince the audience that trade was what Africa needed in order for it to succeed. So I say that to say that, so we end up losing. I say it to say that whatever those evidence they might have against those individuals, in as much that I think they might have, substantial evidence against them, it all depends how they articulate that evidence. It all depends what they're able to prove in a court of law to convince the judge, and if there's jury, to convince the jury, right? But nevertheless, I think whatever step the president is taking is the right step to do, but we shouldn't just start getting excited because, these guys are being brought to court. You still have to prove your case in front of a judge and in front of a jury to convict them. I yield. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gaiman, we heard just a minute. The former finance minister Samuel Toy has already rebutted and said that this is just a witch hunt for former government officials. What do you think?
I look at this. I've been to American politics too long. There was a movie called Wag the Dog. For those young folks who never saw that movie, it's a political movie. When the administration is in trouble, you put on a facade so that the attention can be off you. Here we are. This administration is under serious threat. We are talking about indictment from the international community. The president was disrespected. The American embassy, the delegation walked out. They were accused of breaking the rule of law, circumventing the Supreme Court. She called it Yellow Machine Gate. This police booth that was supposed to be all over the country, downtown Monrovia, was hit and it was removed overnight. When people came, the whole police booth was gone. There's nothing there. All of these things are happening. And how do you switch the attention? We have the Liberian, the GAC, right? The Auditing Commission. They do their audit. What's the procedure? After they have done their audit, they have the legal authority. After they have done their audit, it goes through the process. But they were doing that. They left the GAC and decided to use the LACC, which is directly under the auspices of the president's office, through the I recall Mr. Grace-based office. And you send these people to jail, and all of a sudden, it's supposed to be what we now should be talking about. And when I read what they said here, they said the folks, it said it is alleged that in July 2023, the defendant conspired with co-defendant Stanley Ford, making him a member of the National Security Council in total violation of National Security Act of Liberia. What is that? Then they said, according to that, $500,000 got missing and is questionable. You are talking about $22 million that just disappeared. People say they were going to fix roads. We are talking about the inaugural ball money that the president said they were going to investigate. We are talking about the LDEA that people almost got killed fighting there. The president said they were going to investigate, and in 2 weeks they were going to give the fate of Abraham Croman and his deputies. We are talking about yellow machines. We are talking about everything, including the fear of Mr. Sylvester Moses, the security experts on national security, said this is suspicious, this is incompetent, this is terrible. And then all of a sudden, who do you go after? The same old pepper master that everybody have been, either be Jefferson Koji or what is my name, Samuel Twe and McGill. And these people, when they were talking about, well, a week ago, they wanted to change the subject. They said the 3 missing boys, they opened that case. They said Nyansua, Gabriel, wait a minute, Nyansua was the editor that died. You need to bring Samuel Twain in. They were saying they are people of interest. They are putting all these fake news to distract you and I from speaking what we've been talking about today about this 26th thing. And then let Mr. Samuel Twain said, this is not a first and this is not a second. This is not I'm going to be arrested, re-arrested. Every time they have issue, they want to use me as a scapegoat because during the past 6 years, Samuel Twain may have been the whipping bowl for everybody. So if you want to ride out the red meat for your base, you arrest Samuel Twain and everybody, oh yeah, we got him for what? Look at the charges they are talking about. We are talking about something flimsy. They don't want to go through the GAC that is legally doing that. And now they arrest Twain. In fact, today, someone called me and said, why Spoon? And Spoon TV, that is sponsoring Walkout, went to Twain's house, and the first thing on the headline said, Samuel Twain is on the run. How they came up with this, nobody knows. Samuel Twain is a consultant in the Ivory Coast. He's making a great living. He's a smart guy, and they say he's on the run. He's on the run? So this is just a distraction. I think the guys down there know it very well. It's a distraction.
Hey, Mr. Dr. Pearson, this case, CDC is reiterating that it's a witch hunt, and that they're rallying their base to protest. What do you think about all these going on?
Mr. Eastman, there are a couple of things that I want to just quickly emphasize. First of all, Liberia is so badly corrupt. We call it systemically corrupt, that it is a good news and it's a welcoming event to hear that people have been processed so that they can account for any stolen wealth that they may have acquired while in public office. It's a welcoming situation. But here is a caveat, right? In 2016, we all heard about the Global Witness bribery case against the United Party chairman, all right, Vani Shimon. That case was backed by Global Witness with waterproof evidences that you can think about, that this is evidence I would say that you would think that those guys who have been caught. And not only that, but they report detailed individuals who receive money and the amount of money they receive, along with information as to the payment, the different payment. Big Boy 1, Big Boy 2, J. Eddie just mentioned. Up to now, we don't know who that Big Boy 1, Big Boy 2 was, in addition to Vani Shema and the others. But that's not my major concern. When I think about Big Boy 1, Big Boy 2, the question I always ask myself, could that have been either President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf or President Boyka being one of the Big Boy 1 and the Big Boy 2? Because there's no way that the global witness would have covered up or redacted a particular name if it wasn't a matter of national security for us. So maybe indicting the president or the vice president would have been a national security issue, so they just coded it so that if we went into the case, then we would have to find out. But you know what happened to that case? That case died. Let me tell you what that case died, Mr. Eastman. The lawyer for Sable Mining and Grove was Musa Dean, who was on his way to becoming Minister of Justice. Serena Cephas was also part of the guys who were litigating for the criminals, and he was on his way to becoming Solicitor General. The Supreme Court dropped that case because the Solicitor General incoming, the Minister of Justice incoming were all members of the legal team of Vani Shema and Saber Mining. You see what I'm going with this? Our system is rotting within. We compromise ourselves. Now, let me go further, and this will surprise you. You remember one of the most talk about indicted individual in Liberia was Ellen Cockrum.
Yep.
From Georgia. Ellen Cockrum was Ellen Johnson said he was behind that lady for corruption from the LAA, the Liberia Upper Authority. That woman had recordings on government officials in the parliament, in legislature, in executive branch. And if anybody open their mouth to talk about her corruption, she just play your B on the Liberian message, just play your B on the radio. So you hear your voice. I want my owner eating, you get my owner eating, and then let me get my owner court. When another person hear the voice, they go quiet. And she had recording, and then she threatened. She said, if they push us, she will play the recording of even higher up in early administration. That thing went cool. George, we are got to power. President, we are going to power. They managed to have gotten her. Our Solicitor General, Serena Seaforth, tried to put pressure. Musa Dean and everybody tried to put pressure. But then when they realized the damage that woman could cause, they let her go again. So I'm not hopeful, and I will say to you that Samuel Tuwe and the rest of the other guys are going to be of a big fish that's going to be caught. And I can say I fall in love with Gaiman, Mr. Gaiman. These guys are just trying to deviate from the current topic on the ground. But if they can prosecute them, that's fine. But I think it's not going to go anywhere for this reason. For this reason, Mr. Eastman, mark me on this. Mark this recording. Samuel Tuwe just got out of office. Samuel Tuwe have full access to all of the government documents when it comes to finances of that country. He has everything possible to indict the Joe Boycott. He has everything possible to indict Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. He has everything possible to indict the Amara Conan, who is also running. There's a report coming up on the Amara Conan administration right now of misappropriation for over $100 million that went in the pocket before they turned over to George Weah administration from the National Reserve. That report is out right now. It's causing stir in Liberia. It's going to come up pretty soon. So there are too much damage, too much dirty things, and the politicians who are supposed to fix these things are the very ones whose hands are dirty. The very ones whose hands are dirty. So I don't have faith in them, but I want to see if there will be any difference with this situation, but I don't have any hope.
Yeah, that is what you defined just now is a kleptocracy. I mean, from one to the other. Mr. Carter, any hope for Liberia? We talk about dignity. If we are rife in misappropriation, if we can't prosecute, I mean, they can give you all the evidence. The other day we had drugs delivered to us, the people left. If they give you all the ironclad evidence and still your system can't convict, do we have any hope that anything will be done to bring people to justice?
And it goes back. Thank you, Jimmy. It goes back to what I said. You know, you can have all the evidence. What matters is what you're able to prove in a court of law. And again, as Dr. Clarence pointed out, with people who are in government with these kind of, incriminating information on their fellow, so you arrest somebody like that, they can only give you a snippet of, what they have on you, and your hands will be forced to let them go. And I think these are some of the things that the orator pointed out too, in terms of when she said we have to build back different, right? Meaning you have to get rid of the old and pretty much start hit a reset button to build a different Liberia, because everybody, as you guys pointed out, in our country is literally corrupt, right? We have sanctioned individuals. We talked about Vonnie Sherman, right? The fact that he was sanctioned and was still a senator, he just lost his senatorial position, I think a few elections ago. We still have sanctioned companies in our country that are still operating in Liberia, right? If the president is serious, I will go after those companies that are there. I think there are 3 or 9 companies that were sanctioned that are classified as being tied to Hezbollah, which is one of the terrorist organizations. Like, can you imagine operating in a country where there is, terrorist organization that are sanctioned, right? Financial, what do you call it? Crimes are being ran through those companies. Money laundering. Do something with those people, and then you go down to the former people if you want to arrest them. But I think this is is exactly what everybody's saying. I think this is just a distraction from the ineptitude that is happening in the country, from the misstart since the inauguration. They have not had any wins at all, right? Since January. Show me a win that this president has had, right? There's no win for them. So to get away from all this distraction, they go after people. Now, I don't want to be so lenient to say if these guys are found guilty and if they were engaged in any economic crime, as I said earlier, that is supposedly supposed to be sabotaging the country's growth. Absolutely, arrest them, bring the evidence against them, and if you're able to not pay off judges if they don't have anything on you, convict them and lock them away. But I think this should not be, a distraction. If you're not going to go after those people in entirety, you should not distract, the Liberian people from exactly what is happening. Some of the things I think they might have good substantial evidence on are, the report from the central bank, right? I think somebody alluded to that earlier, where there's insider lending to staff members. Some of those people defaulting on their loan, they're not paying it back, right? Can you imagine a central bank of an entire country does not have simple regulations in terms of how it regulates insider lending, that they're defaulting a loan on loans, right? Now you imagine that central bank now regulating commercial banks. If you don't have the entire processes, internal processes to regulate yourself, what make you think you're efficient enough to regulate central banks, right? And we saw in that report also, they talked about money that was funneled, that were
Yeah.
approved right before these guys left and went into and what before the inauguration, right? They funnel money out of bogus approval processes, right? So they might have those evidence against those guys, which I think if they can prove it, again, is all about what you can prove, not what you have. Please do go after them. But I think if you're going after these people because you're trying to distract the Liberian people from the what we usually call the bread and butter issue, then you're digging yourself into a deeper hole, because 6 months from now, or they'll continue to keep reminding you of your failures. Thank you.
Mr. Gaiman.
Yeah, real quick.
Just before you start,
Mhm.
here's my take on this, and I'm a very practical kind of thinker. They claim now they are sending a writ of arrest for former finance minister and Samuel Tway. This man was indicted or put on sanctions by the U.S. government. You think if they were serious, wouldn't they have gotten enough evidence from there to go after them? Is this really just a distraction?
But like Mr. Carter and Dr. Pearson said, in the rebuttal from Mr. Tue, who was hired by Joseph Boakai and Ellen Johnson Sirleaf as the brain in their service, and he admitted, he showed proof. He said Ellen and Boakai were paying me $8,000 plus benefit a month. He said, so George Weah is now paying me $7,000 plus no benefits. I am taking a big cut. This is a man who has been there. He was originally a unity partisan, banned with the system. Now he is saying they have evidence, like you said, Doctor and Carter, that these people, you talk about someone that Samuel Tue, who was the brain behind everything they did, that has paper and things on other people. He says, today the Unity Party facing massive allegation of ongoing corruption. including a UP government sanctioned central bank payment of $8 million of Liberian from the Liberian Reserve to the SRP Bank, which was funded through the Unity Father campaign. Can you imagine this man has that much paper and detail that he says this is just scratching the surface of what he has? That these people before they could actually soon they took power, they were owing this much money that they have borrowed through SRP Bank, and they needed this money immediately. And where was the governors? Where the people who are the trustees? How do you do this? But like the folks say, you got to be in it to know it. That's what it is. This is serious for these folks to sit there and say you are going to prosecute 7 people for $500,000. You say suspected they may have done something, put some people here. $500,000, but you leaving $8 million, $100 million for yellow machines. He says it's a gentleman's handshake. $22 million in 30 days. You say you're reconditioning roads. $700,000 for inauguration. Yes, just the 20th of this month. $500,000 for the 26th celebration. When people, the civil servants are not paid, the people can't eat. $500,000, and you're gonna leave that and say, yo, these 7 guys, they may have connived and conspire to fund $500,000. And can you? I mean, like you and I, we are sitting here, we are so naive and so gullible that somebody gonna say, I just used $22 million went to the Senate, and all people. Abachi, one of the most corrupt people in the country, say we pardon them. Does the Senate have the power to pardon? Is that how the system works in Liberia? I told you, judicial system, after it has taken its course, then the president has the power to pardon. Not the Senate. Mr. Carter and Dr. Pearson, maybe you guys know more about this than I do, but who gave the Senate power to pardon somebody who just squandered $22 million in 30 days and say they are pardoned? Who does that?
All right, gentlemen, we're going to wrap it up now. I just want your last statements to your Liberian people and what you see that the common man can do for himself, given the situation he finds himself, given the environment, as you alluded to, Mr. Pearson. Go ahead first.
I was one of those who came through the thick and thin of Liberia, 14-year brutal civil crisis. One of those who lost a parent in the civil crisis, which was my breadwinner. I'm one of those who had to play soccer ball to go to school and to get my education, and then to single-handedly fund myself in college up to PhD level. I refused government scholarship through Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf to go for further studies because of my difference on how they handle the war crime, the TRC report stuff. So if I'm saying this to just say that, listen, regardless of how hard Liberia is, if you are determined and you are committed to your goals and your aspirations, you can achieve something. I would just say, just be determined and focus. Somebody once said, if you're a hard worker, no matter how hard the day is, you will find a daily bread. And if you look hard enough and you prepare yourself, you will find an opportunity from it's not an easy advice to give anyone. But I'm a man of God, so I would say maybe I use faith. I'm not sure, and God's grace upon my life. But I know that I left hundreds of thousands of young people behind me who did not have the opportunity that I had to achieve, like myself. But I pray that I don't know, man. I can just pray, but I have no hope in Liberia leadership. I got no hope. Okay. I can just pray for my brother and sister back there. That's all, man.
Mr. Carter, what do you advise the common man, the man who way down the ladder, given the environment he found? What do you advise him to do given the situation he's in, to emancipate himself from where they are today?
Jimmy, thank you. And you know, it was a pleasure being on here with Dr. Clarence and Jimmy. Mr. Gaiman. For those of you watching, thank you. I, I stick by what I said. In as much as what Dr. Clarence just said, I think I hear that from a lot of people that they've given up on Liberia. But I think from and if you're operating from a common man perspective, if you look at everything else that is above you, you are more than likely to feel the same way. So I don't, fault him for thinking that way as well. And I think there are many people at the bottom of this economic spectrum who think that way. But I think the most powerful tool that each and every one of us have is our voice, meaning, you can use your voice if you see things happening in your country that you don't like, instead of just being quiet, you can speak on those things. And I said this earlier again, we have to be or get out of the passive mindset that we have, that we can just let things go, people offend us and we just let it go. This is why the current country it is the way it is, because we sit there and we allow the senators, the government official to abuse us, and we say nothing. Other countries around us, and as I usually point, look, our regional peers, when they're ready, they protest, something happens. They don't like anything. Your voice and your ability to protest is the most powerful tool you have. So stop being passive and get out of this passive mindset. If you're passive, nothing happens for you. You got to be bold. I would say this one thing that before I yield back. This America that we talk about, where most of us are, and we talk about when you come here, this is where all the opportunities are. You come here, you have to fight. You have to have a dog fighting you. You cannot just be a passive individual and survive in America. It doesn't work that way. So the same mindset is the same mindset I want you guys to adopt back home. You got to be you cannot be passive. Be aggressive and use your voice to demand the things that you want in your country. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Mr. Gaiman, the same question. What advice you got for the Liberian man who way down, who faces the challenges he has? The people he represent him are robbing him day and night. What would you advise him?
First of all, I want to give shout out to my sister here, Mayeda Gia. She contributed immensely to my education and my well-being, so she understands from whence I come. When I was young, I did exactly what most of the young folks are doing, selling things on the street and hoping to make it. And in my old age, I am still seeing, in fact, it has gotten worse. I was disturbed when a young man or a group of folks trying to make a living, honest living, selling, and a young man, they say they were riding in a keke, and the presidential escort ran over the keke and killing some folks. 26 is around the corner. Everybody is hustling to make a living. And in the process, he lost his life and several in critical condition. And the president went to ELWA hospital to visit. When they caught up with him asking, what do you have to say to the nation? He says that these people should learn to get out of the way. I mean, this is our father of the country. Instead of speaking to the nation at the event, he never did. He never mentioned that somebody lost his life or her life on his way to this event. Never mentioned. In this country, if something of that nature happened, the president would say, my condolences to the family, or let have 1 second of silence for those who lost their life. Never. And then the president added insult and said, we have to educate the folks. They shouldn't be in the road when the presidential escort is coming. A country where we do not give opportunity to children, as it is in war, when things are terrible as it is, the first victims are children and women. These pedophiles are all over the place molesting these little girls and boys because there is no opportunity for them. The only way out is either to sell yourself to somebody or to the highest bidder. And yet, year in and year out, nobody cares. And there's the people selling all in the street. They got to move them off the street. What else has the government done to give opportunity to those people down there? What do I have to say? If I knew it, I would play the lotto tomorrow. I got out of that situation because of people like Majida Gia and the late Louis York and Dr. G. Franklin Holt, who saw me and saw something in me and got me out of that situation. I am one in a million. Can I say that that will happen to a few other kids after me? I doubt it. So, like we say in our old gospel songs, after we have done preaching and said everything we have said, when we meet our Maker, our conscience should be clear to say, it is well with my soul. I have done what I have done. Majida Gia, Dr. Holt, Louis York, they did their part, and look where I am. This is what I am passionate about, very, very passionate about Liberia. I go home every year twice, and I do as much as I can. And we all have to do it because it will depend on our government. The generation after us is not a gap, it's a gulf. We are the greatest generation. After us, we don't know what's going to happen because you and I have home economics, home etiquette, those things that Jimmy and you guys know. You know, people taught you how to talk to ladies when you go to the dance hall, how to approach a woman to ask her to dance. All of these things we were taught. You talk to folks down there, they have no idea what we are talking about. The 20 years of war, people say 15, but you know, look where we are now. They're going to have been silent for 20 years. And if you add 16 years or 14 years of war, that's 34 years. So all I can say is let's do it from our personal perspective. Mr. Eastman, you're doing your part. I know Mr. Ricardo pays so many tuition and Dr. Pearson doing the same thing. It's peer-to-peer, person-to-person. Each person help one person. That's the way to go. If we depend on our government, it will never happen. Thank you.
Each one help one. You know, we are all Liberian. Until we get a solution, each one help one. I'll leave you with the song, We Are All Liberian.
We are Liberian. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Israel, USA, all we want. Liberia, oh. Israel, USA, all we want. Liberia, Liberia.